Everybody, September 3rd, 2025, here with your after hours recap. So, kind of just diving in on Google, you had the big gap up overnight, and, that kind of helped the NASDAQ last night, with a bit of a gap up. Today, the NASDAQ was selling off just a little bit, and it was kind of causing for a choppy market. But then right at the end of day, there was just this, kind of big buy side imbalance, which pushed the market higher. Very nice to see. But the market, while it was fading, it was putting pressure on some stocks like a Palantir, for instance, where you had the morning drive and then just an afternoon kind of a failure beneath the 50-day. I don't want to see this thing hanging out underneath the 50-day too long, or it could end up potentially looking like an oracle where you kind of break down into the 50-day, you digest along that area just a little too long, and then eventually you start to break down. I thought CRDO and after hours was really nice for earnings, and obviously this is the why you want to focus on stocks in pretty good groups and above the 200 simple moving average. It's more likely that something continues and gaps up and can continue higher versus something like CRM in after hours that reports that's already living below the 200. You wedge up right into the 50-day, and then all of a sudden you're gapping right back down to $240. So this is why I don't really try to cherry pick a bottom. Play in stocks that are beneath their 200. That's just kind of spells trouble for my type of trading. But ultimately, it's been kind of a split market for every nice Roblox move we had today. On the flip side of that, you had a Rocket Lab today. And it wasn't just a Rocket Lab, it was an ASTS. So, you kind of got to take the good with the bad. And there was quite a bit of rotation going on. There were some stocks that I thought were showing tons of relative strength today, even when the market was pulling back. Something like an ANET. I think, ANET continues to show tons of strength. I thought Dash was holding in there pretty well today. I thought, AppLovin did a nice job going to test that 500 level. Obviously a bit of a rejection, but, I really hate wedging kind of price action, and not something that I was going to play anyway. And the solar stocks, I think that FSLR had a nice little move out of the gate, and held in well. I almost bought this one today, but I did not. Sedge was another one that I thought held in there fairly well. Run is another one, and obviously NXT is another one. So really nice to see. But then on the flip side of maybe solar's perking up, you've got this GEV, which has been a leader. Kind of starting to have a few closes underneath the 50-day, an unfilled gap, pick up in volume the last 2 days. So, right, some names are kind of faltering on their prior leadership, and then maybe the market's rotating into a few other things that have been deemed kind of dead for the last few years, and potentially solar. So pretty interesting dynamic what we have going on right now. It's just kind of a mixed bag market. I did buy some Pinduoduo today, and I do like the way that KWeb has been acting. Obviously, this thing has been above the 200 simple moving average for a few weeks now. Pullbacks into the 20-day have continued to find support. So obviously yesterday you came into the 20-day, you found some support. So when we started taking out yesterday's highs, I started to get positioned in Pinduoduo. Hopefully, I know these names can be pretty choppy, but hopefully these things want to continue higher. Baba has been, pretty dang fantastic on a huge pickup in volume, small little inside day today. And then, Futu has been awesome, for the tune of 70 points since I was watching this thing down here. So, really, really nice to see. Chinese equities kind of continue to find some love despite people really hating them. I got to give some honorable mention to Bitcoin and its relative strength for the past 2 days. But even with Bitcoin relative strength, MSTR is being thrown in the trash. I really cannot imagine what's going to happen to this name if Bitcoin continues to potentially roll over and lose that 100 and call it even $100,000 level. You start to lose $100,000 on MSTR or on Bitcoin, and I would suspect that MSTR is probably down almost another 70, 80 points from here, just the way it's acting right now. So not really pretty for some names that have led in the past. But there is potentially new leadership shaping up. I would like to see maybe if NVIDIA can get its act together a little bit. AMD could be interesting. ALAB could be interesting. CRDO could be interesting. MU, TSM, AVGO. But I was just scanning through the semis today, and there's just far too many of them living below their 50 simple moving average or worse. And I don't really love this price action from an ARM or even an ASML or a KLAC, an LRCX. You're just too many names just living below the 50-day. Can it reclaim? Yes, maybe. I have no clue. I'm not going to say that they're going to reclaim. They kind of just got to do it on their own. I'm not here to be any one stock's savior. So just kind of got to let price action dictate where money's going, where money's leaving. I still have my long in ARC, and this one did close okay after yesterday. We're back above the 50-day, which is nice. I still have some CCL, and with that said, Viking is another one of these cruise liners that is hanging in there really well. I have not added to my CCL, and then today I bought PDD. So, hopefully these Chinese equities want to continue. Like I said, they're not really getting the love and attention that I would expect. The retail apparel names, those are acting, or retail names, I guess you would say, which is XRT ETF, is actually acting pretty well. And with that said, something like Macy's, on earnings, pretty dang good, huge pickup in volume, I don't know what to make of that, but that's fantastic. And then, who doesn't love Sydney Sweeney, getting back above the 200 simple moving average and an insane gap up. So awesome to see. There are things out there that are looking fairly interesting. No, I'm not looking to buy AEO tomorrow or even Macy's. But you do have some things that are acting well. I noticed airlines today. I really didn't see how this thing closed. Not the best. It was looking pretty good in the morning, but obviously gave some of that back. I thought Boeing had a pretty nice base, but, effectively weak all day. We'll see if, can kind of take out this little flat base going forward. But really, mega caps, Google and Apple are really shaping up nicely. Everything else is kind of on, a breather. I thought Tesla today was looking really nice into this pullback, and then obviously, closed, not the best. Don't really know what to make of the close, but it's just one of those markets where you got to figure out where money's going. Today it looked a bit of home builders were getting some love. It looked a bit in the morning that biotechs were getting some love. It looks like, the gold stocks could use a little breather. Like I said, honorable mention to Ethereum and Bitcoin, Solana, gold, these more commodities, alternative money, whatever you want to call them, hanging in there pretty well. And we'll just see, kind of how things transpire into the rest of the week. I'm not really trying to force the issue anywhere. We'll just kind of take it one day at a time, and hopefully I can go ahead and size myself in a Pinduoduo over the coming days. So dogs decided to start playing, so that is my cue to get off the screens. Hopefully you guys all have a great rest of your day, and I will see you guys all bright and early for pre-market prep. Cheers.